Hello and welcome to all the members of the barbarian horde from Kitaya in the east to Aquilonia in the west, but not Pix. They're not welcome here. Anyways, I'm Joe, here with me is my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
And we figured that for the month of October, we may as well do horror thriller-based story of Howard's rather than just reposting old videos. So here we are. And we've been told constantly to read A Witch Shall Be Born, and that it was a really good story, and that it's one of the inspirations for the Conan the Barbarian movie. Now that we've read the first two chapters, I can say, yeah, I see it. And honestly, I really like the first two chapters.
No argument here.
We're on the first page of the short story, which in the Black Book edition is 356. We're introduced to Taramis, queen of Conan, and it is revealed very quickly that she was born with a twin sister, and while she knew she had a twin, she was told her twin died. In reality, her twin was born with a scar or a birthmark between her breasts. That sister was a witch from birth, being endowed with all sorts of power and whatnot, but also having a corrupted soul that tends to lead her to be evil. And legend has it that the dynasty of Conan was founded by someone who mated with a demon. The first queen of the line of Conan mated with a fiend of darkness and bore a daughter to that demon. And thereafter, in every century, a child witch was born into the Ascorian dynasty, and the birthmark looks like a scarlet half moon between her breast. But apparently the dynasty has always been able to snuff out every other child. Like this. The trouble is that this time around they screwed up. They decided that it'd be better to just cast her out into the desert and that this should suffice. So they got lazy and complacent and they out not to have. Salome is this twin's name, and she was found by a magician of Kitai who had connections to Stygia. Already this is sounding terrible. Like the worst possible person you could have discover this child. And it's rather convenient that a magician of Kitai with links to Stygia was wandering by just as Salome was being cast out into the desert. That's no coincidence. He was directed there. Constantius, meanwhile, is a Shemite war chief stationed outside the city and has requested the hand of Taramis. She turned him down flat because he's unworthy, and she imprisoned him because she has a brain. The trouble is that Taramis has been betrayed, and Salome, pretending to be her, sent away some of the guards and now decided to imprison her sister, and even gives her new consort permission to violate Taramis later. Salome's horrible. Yeah, it's really unquestionable that Salome is evil. She's supposed to be very beautiful and the perfect double of Taramis, but she has none of Taramis's goodness. So already I really like Salome as a villain. The next chapter sees a character called Valerian cursing Taramis as he is being taken care of by his lover Ivka. And what's fascinating about Valerian here is that we are seeing what happened in the aftermath of the usurpation of the throne of Taramis from the point of view of essentially, I don't want to say an NPC character, but a secondary character. We're introduced to Conan in this short story from another point of view, from a regular guardsman perspective. This is a fascinating intro for Conan. Such a well-told moment. Although Ivka does try to quiet her lover and try to stick kiss him and tell him, oh, it's okay, honey, it's okay, as though he were a child, but he insists on telling the story. Apparently, as far as he knows, Taramis opened the gates to the enemy. Conan, who had been drinking off duty, showed up, having heard some commotion, and immediately barked out orders, refusing to listen to her, and took one single look at Salome and immediately said, "You're not Taramis." By this time, Conan has apparently become a captain of the guard, so he's been serving in the local army for a bit. The fact that he knows Taramis enough to basically take one look at this witch and say, no, you're not her. I know Taramis, you're not her. And he exposes Salome instantly. This is a really fascinating take on the character where we see him as an agent of truth rather than just simply freedom. Conan is smart and perceptive enough to see through even a witch who is disguised as someone else. So we see a more intelligent side of the character. Then she ends up panicking and calling in guards, and her and Constantius send wave after wave of men, and Conan takes them all out. It's mentioned that there had to have been about 100 of them who fell to Conan alone. But Conan also rallied many of the guards to his side, who preferred to take his orders over Taramis's orders. But he was inevitably taken prisoner and then crucified out in the desert outside the city. And Conan ends up cursing the city, and this is where it gets really interesting. Conan seems to accuse the city of betraying him, and one of several times, and this is the most blatant time outside of Hour of the Dragon, where you have a rural versus urban type of philosophy happening. Howard is very blatantly showing cities as places of corruption and wickedness, and occasionally he has glorified cities. I would argue Volusia he glorified a little. even Tarantia of Aquilonia, he sometimes glorifies, sometimes acts like it's a hole in the ground. But here, Howard is clearly showing a city in a negative light and having the countryside be revered as a place of superiority in every way and moral superiority, which, as someone who hates cities in all forms, outside of one or two, I can actually say I agree with this outlook on cities.
Cities are tiring.
And the problem is you have too many people in a small confined space and they do drive each other bonkers. Conan has a moment of awesomeness, as always. When a vulture comes in to peck at him, thinking he's dead, Conan rears up with his teeth, grabs at the vulture's throat, and snaps its neck. Because he had to prove how awesome he is to us readers.
I mean, he can't just die.
Awesome sauce that he is however found by Oldgerd. This is on page 368, and it's a very fascinating interaction. That said, he is a hetman of the Kozaki of the Saporoskin River, and what he asks Conan is, would you like to live? Only a fool would ask that question, panted Conan. And Oldgerd defends his foolishness with, I am a hard man, and toughness is the only quality I respect in a man. I shall judge if you are a man or only a dog after all, fit only to lie here and die. Now, one of the nomads objects and says, if we cut him down, we may be seen from the walls. The dusk is deep. Here, take this out, Jebel, and cut down the cross at the base. If it falls forward, it will crush him, objected dead Jebel. I can cut it so it will fall backward, but then the shock of the fall may crack his skull and tear loose all his entrails. At which point Oldgerd has a rather practical solution, I guess, if slightly cold, to this. If he's worthy to ride with me, he'll survive it. If not, then he doesn't deserve to live. Wow. These are the guys Conan is relying upon to save his life. Conan ends up, of course, surviving because he's Conan.
I mean, he's probably been through worse.
And they decide to take him to their camp. And Oldgerd once again says something pretty funny. Let him wait until we get to camp. Because one of the Shemites went to lift up a water flask to offer it to Conan. You just have Oldgerd who tells him, let him wait until we get to camp. It's only 10 miles. If he's fit to live in the desert, he'll live that long without a drink. When Conan's almost dying of thirst already. My gosh, Oldgerd is so impractical. But I like him.
He's a douche.
Yeah, it's like, if he survives, he deserves to ride with me. If he doesn't, screw him. Oh, look, he survived. Should I give him something to drink? Nah. If he can survive that long without water, he deserves to have a drink. If not, screw him. Oldgerd he's a total jerk. But I like him.
Yeah, he's likable.
That's Howard. He always writes characters who are likable. Even his villains are in some ways attractive. It's just Howard had a truly supernatural gift as a writer. What did you think of these first two chapters?
And very creepy.
I love the stuff with the witch. It's a very creepy scene, like you said.
Salome, she is nuts. That was your sister. Even if she had nothing to do with what happened to you.
And she even offered to take in Salome as her sister and her heiress as crown princess. Salome, yeah, I'm gonna let my guy violate you.
That was just messed up.
On the other hand, Conan tries to fight for Taramis. He's crucified. Now, the scene with Conan and the fact that he's near death, this is clearly a very Christian moment in the history of Conan. Obviously, Howard was now... Okay, Howard is, I would argue, here he's not looking to his usual hero, Shakespeare. Because normally he looks to Shakespeare for inspiration. Because according to his letters, Howard considered William Shakespeare to be his hero. There are worse people to aspire after. Here, Howard is looking for inspiration from the Bible. And I'm going to be honest, only a writer like Howard could look to the Bible for inspiration and not screw it up. There are very few writers of the caliber of Howard who could actually make a story, I don't want to say dishonor, but seem like a pale imitation, but seems like an actual fantastic moment in the history of Conan. It's such a great nod to the Bible, and only Howard could have done it. He is such a great writer. It's like Zero Sum once said, he is more than Tolkien's equal.
And you do also get a Roman sense from crucifixion, but the way
the guards are loyal to the queen.
Exactly.
Oh.
And the fact that you had the Shemites at the gate.
Oh, waiting to burst in like the Visigoths in 408. Yeah, I really like this. This is supposed to be, I think, one of Howard's horror stories within the Conan mythos, and I really like it.
Great setup.
We'll do the next two chapters, and then we'll do the last two chapters. This is a great story. And then I'm thinking we might do a separate video on Salome, because I think she deserves her own.
Yeah.
With that said, don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button as though you were Conan crushing his enemies.